Ilhan Omar positioned herself at the central microphone on the floor of the House of Representatives, the unblinking lenses of C-SPAN cameras rolling to broadcast the moment live to an observant America. She spoke with a rehearsed and polished confidence, asserting, "I hold a deep love for this country. I love America, for it has bestowed upon me everything I possess." Mike Johnson leaned forward from his elevated vantage point in the speaker's chair, his demeanor calm and measured. Yet anyone observing closely could discern a distinct intensity in his gaze. It was the look of a man who had reached the limit of his patience. "The gentlewoman claims to harbor a love for America," he stated quietly, his Louisiana accent soft in cadence, yet undeniable in its firmness. "I believe it is prudent that we examine that claim against the testimony of her own words." He elevated a sheaf of printed documents, tweets, transcripts of speeches, and congressional voting records, all indisputable components of the official register. "You tweeted that support for Israel is all about the Benjamins. You characterized our national response to September 11th as, 'Some people did something.' You have famously described America as fundamentally racist and oppressive." Omar attempted to interject, "Mr. Speaker, I believe you arrived in this country as a refugee, Congresswoman." Johnson's voice remained unruffled, yet every syllable landed with the impact of a heavy hammer. "At 12 years old, fleeing the ravages of war in Somalia, America took you in. We provided you with safety, an education, opportunity, and the chance to become anything you aspired to be. We elevated you to the status of a United States Congresswoman, the highest honor we can bestow upon a citizen." He paused, for effect. "Let that reality sink in, and you repay that monumental gift with hostility." The chamber fell into a profound silence. One could almost hear the collective breathing of the room. It became immediately apparent that this was not destined to be a standard legislative session. This was a reckoning. The resolution regarding anti-Semitism had passed through the committee that very morning, specifically condemning statements made by members of the House. Everyone present understood that it was targeted specifically at Omar, her tweets regarding Israel, her commentary concerning financial influence in politics, and her minimization of the events of 9/11. The rules of the House required her to address the matter, to defend her statements, or face a formal censure. She could not retreat, nor could she hide behind the veil of social media. This was official, on the record, taking place in the most powerful legislative chamber in the world. Mike Johnson, a constitutional lawyer from Louisiana, a Christian conservative, a husband and father, a man who had never been part of the Washington establishment before his election, now sat in the Speaker's chair with the authority to demand answers, and he had brought the evidence, her own words, her own votes, her own historical record. Omar believed she could navigate through this with charm, perhaps play the role of the victim, or claim bias, the same tactics that had shielded her in sympathetic media outlets. But not today, not in this venue, and not with a speaker who believed fervently in accountability. Johnson opened a folder. "Let us begin with your comments regarding Jewish Americans and Israel, and your belief that money dictates American foreign policy." In the gallery above, Holocaust survivors watched, families of 9/11 victims watched, and Jewish leaders from across America watched. The refugee who had been accused of ingratitude was about to face a moment of justice. The House chamber buzzed with palpable tension. Members were fixed in their seats, the gallery was packed to capacity, and reporters filled the press section. This was a historic moment. A sitting speaker, directly confronting a member on the floor, was an occurrence that almost never happened. But these were not normal times. The resolution had been introduced by House Republicans 2 weeks prior, condemning anti-Semitism in Congress and reaffirming support for the State of Israel. Democrats had attempted to block it, dismissing it as political theater and claiming it targeted Omar unfairly. But the American populace had made their voices heard. Outrage flooded congressional offices. Jewish groups demanded action. September 11th families demanded accountability, and Christians were horrified by the rhetoric against Israel. The resolution passed the committee on a bipartisan vote. Even some within her own party could no longer defend Omar's statements. House rules were unequivocal. When a member's conduct was under debate, they possessed the right to address the chamber, to defend themselves, or face censure without comment. Omar had no choice. She had to speak. She had to defend years of controversial statements and rhetoric that questioned her allegiance. And she had to do it with Mike Johnson presiding. Johnson had prepared for this moment, had prayed over it. He believed in grace, in forgiveness, and in charity. But he also believed in justice, in truth, and in defending the innocent against those who would wish them harm. Omar's statements had caused harm Jewish Americans living in apprehension. September 11th families whose pain she had minimized, Israeli citizens facing threats she implicitly supported. Justice demanded accountability. The chamber quieted as Johnson brought the session to order. The House will come to order. We are here to address Resolution 847, condemning anti-Semitism and reaffirming support for Israel. His voice was professional and calm. This was official business. The chair recognizes the gentlewoman from Minnesota, Representative Omar, to address the substance of this resolution and the statements that prompted it. Omar walked to the microphone at the member's well, situated below the speaker's elevated chair. The visual was striking. Authority positioned above, the member standing below. She wore a hijab of bright colors, a clear statement of identity. She had built her public image on being the first Somali American in Congress, the first Muslim woman to wear a hijab on the House floor. But today, that identity would be scrutinized, not for its religious nature, but because it raised questions about values and whether someone from a background so vastly different could truly embrace American principles. Mr. Speaker, members of the House, she began, her voice confident. I stand here today as a proud American, as someone who loves this country and has dedicated my life to serving it. Johnson did not interrupt. Not yet. He would let her make her case. That was fair. That was the American way. The attacks on me are rooted in bias, in the fear of someone who appears different, who comes from a different background, who challenges the status quo. It was the standard defense. Claim victimhood, allege bigotry. I have always stood for justice, for human rights, for the oppressed. My criticisms of Israeli government policy are about human rights, not about Jewish people. She was skilled, rehearsed, attempting to separate political criticism from prejudice. It was the classic defense. Johnson made a note. She had opened the door. Now he could walk through it. I yield the balance of my time, Mr. Speaker. She thought she had diffused the situation, played the victim card, and separated policy from prejudice. Johnson leaned into his microphone, employing that calm, measured voice, the voice of a constitutional lawyer who had spent years arguing before judges. I thank the gentlewoman for her statement. The chair will now ask some questions for clarification. This is standard procedure when a member's conduct is under review. Omar looked uncertain. Questions were not supposed to be part of the script, but Johnson was the speaker. He could set the procedure. Congresswoman, you mentioned your criticisms of Israeli government policy. Let me read one of your tweets from February 2019. Quote, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby." This was in response to a question about American support for Israel. He looked up from the paper. Can you explain what you meant by that statement? The trap was set. Everything she said was now on the official record under congressional rules, with America watching. The reckoning had begun. Mike Johnson held up the printed tweet, large enough for the cameras to capture. Omar's own words were on display. February 10th, 2019. Someone asked you why American politicians support Israel. You responded, "It's all about the Benjamins, baby." He paused, letting the phrase hang in the air. For those watching who may not know, Benjamins refers to $100 bills. Money. You were stating that American support for Israel is entirely about money, that politicians are bought. Congresswoman, do you stand by that statement? Omar shifted uncomfortably. Mr. Speaker, I was referring to AIPAC's lobbying influence. AIPAC is the American Israel Public Affairs Committee, a pro-Israel organization supported primarily by Jewish Americans, Johnson explained, his voice like a teacher instructing students. So when you said support for Israel is all about the Benjamins, you were saying that Jewish Americans buy political influence with money. Is that correct? Think about what he was doing. Not yelling, not accusing, just asking her to confirm her own words. Mr. Speaker, I was criticizing the influence of lobbying groups, but you specifically mentioned AIPAC in response to a question about Israel. You made it about money, about Benjamins. Do you understand why Jewish Americans found that offensive? He pulled out another document. That is an anti-Semitic trope, Congresswoman, the idea that Jews control politics through money. It goes back centuries. It was used by historical regimes that persecuted Jews, and you used it in Congress as an elected representative. In the gallery, Holocaust survivors nodded, some with tears in their eyes. They had heard this lie before in Europe, before the camps, before their families were murdered. Omar tried to defend herself. Many people criticize lobbying. It is not anti-Semitic to let me read another statement. Johnson stayed calm and in control. You tweeted that Israel has hypnotized the world. That is another classic anti-Semitic trope that Jews use dark powers to control perception. Hypnosis, mind control. It is reminiscent of historically vicious anti-Semitic propaganda. He looked directly at her. Do you see the pattern in your own statements? This was not one tweet. This was not one mistake. This was a pattern. You have also questioned the loyalty of Jewish Americans, suggested they have allegiance to a foreign country. That is called the dual loyalty canard. Another classic attack. Johnson pulled out voting records. And your votes back up your words. Every single vote on Israel aid, every resolution supporting Israel's right to defend itself, every condemnation of terrorist acts, you have voted no. Let me ask you directly. Do you believe Israel has a right to exist as a Jewish state? The chamber went silent. Everyone wanted to hear this answer. Omar hesitated, tried to dodge. I believe in a two-state solution. That is not what I asked. Does Israel, the Jewish state, have a right to exist? Yes or no? She would not say yes. She could not say no without damaging her position completely. She just stood there. Your silence speaks volumes, Congresswoman. Johnson turned to address the entire chamber. On October 7, 2023, terrorists invaded Israel, massacred 1,200 people, assaulted women, murdered infants, and took hostages, the worst attack on Jews since the Holocaust. How did you respond? You called for a ceasefire immediately, before Israel could defend itself. You blamed the Israeli occupation. You created a moral equivalence between terrorists who murder civilians and a democracy defending itself. He held up photos. Victims of the attack, bodies, destruction. These people were murdered for being Jewish, and you could not bring yourself to condemn it without also blaming Israel. In the gallery, Jewish leaders watched, some crying, others angry, all deeply hurt. Johnson's voice got quieter. more personal. I am a Christian, Congresswoman. I believe the Bible is God's word. Genesis 12:3 says, I will bless those who bless you, and whoever curses you, I will curse. That is God speaking to Abraham, to the Jewish people. America has been blessed because we have stood with Israel, the only democracy in the Middle East, the only place in that region where Arabs, Christians, Muslims, and Jews can vote, speak freely, and worship freely, and you attack them constantly. Why? Omar tried to respond. Palestinian human rights. Are you aware that Christians are persecuted throughout the region? That Gaza has almost no Christians left? That Israel is the only Middle Eastern country where the Christian population is growing? Yet you side with groups that oppose these values. Why? He let that question hang. The answer seemed obvious to everyone watching. Let me ask you something personal, Congresswoman. You came from Somalia, a country torn by war, terror, and a lack of freedom. Israel is everything Somalia is not. Democracy, freedom, women's rights, the rule of law. Yet you express hostility toward Israel and defend Somalia. Why? The contrast is stark and undeniable. Could it be that your problem isn't with Israeli policy? Could it be that your problem is that Israel is a Jewish state? Omar looked stricken. She could not answer. Johnson addressed the gallery. We have Holocaust survivors here today. People who survived the attempt to exterminate the Jewish people. They came to America for safety, for freedom, for a country that would stand with Jews against those who hate them. And you, a member of Congress, spread the same ancient lies. Money control, dual loyalty, the same lies that led to tragedies in history. His voice filled with emotion now, not anger, but sadness, deep disappointment. You should be better than this, Congresswoman. America gave you the opportunity to rise above ancient hatreds, to embrace freedom and tolerance, to defend the oppressed instead of joining the oppressors. And you chose hostility. You chose to attack the Jewish people, a persecuted minority. And you did it from the platform America gave you. Omar stood there, unable to respond. What could she say? He had used her own words, her own votes, her own pattern of behavior against her. We will return to this, Johnson said. But first, let us discuss September 11th, 2001, and your comments about that day, because that is when your contempt for America became undeniable. Mike Johnson pulled up a video file. Every screen in the chamber showed it. The video every American had been waiting for. March 23rd, 2019. You were speaking at a CARE event, the Council on American Islamic Relations. Let me play your exact words. He pressed play. Ilhan Omar's voice filled the chamber. CARE was founded after 9/11 because they recognized that some people did something and that all of us were starting to lose access to our civil liberties. Johnson paused the video. Let those words hang in complete silence. Some people did something. You could hear breathing in the chamber. Nothing else. Let me tell you what something was, Congresswoman. His voice was quiet now, controlled. But you could hear the emotion underneath. The pain. The memory. September 11th, 2001. I was a lawyer in Louisiana. A young father with 3 small children at home. I was getting ready for work when my wife called me to the TV. The towers were burning. People were jumping from windows because the fire was unbearable. Firefighters were running into the buildings to save people. Heroes sacrificing themselves for strangers. Then the towers collapsed. 3,000 Americans buried in rubble. Dead. Murdered. He looked directly at Omar. That is what something was. Think about this moment. The Speaker of the House, second in line to the presidency, talking about 9/11 with raw emotion. And Omar sitting there, having called it Some people did something. Let me be more specific about that. Something. Because words matter. Truth matters. Johnson pulled out a document. The North Tower. 102 minutes between impact and collapse. 102 minutes of people trapped above the fire, calling loved ones, saying goodbye, choosing between the fire and the fall. 92 minutes in the South Tower. Same horror, same impossible choice. The Pentagon, 125 dead, including my friend's brother, an army officer, a father of two, killed at his desk. United Flight 93, 4-0 heroes who fought back. Let's roll. They crashed in Pennsylvania to save the Capitol building. Your building, Congresswoman. They died. So you could someday sit in Congress. His voice cracked slightly, just for a moment. 2,977 Americans murdered that day. Fathers, mothers, sons, daughters, husbands, wives, children who would never grow up. And you called it, some people did something. The gallery cameras showed faces. 9/11 families, some crying, some angry, all hurting. We have families here today, people who lost everything on September 11th. Johnson gestured. Cameras panned to them. This is Patricia Riley. She lost her husband, John, a firefighter. He ran into the towers and never came out, left her with 3 children to raise alone. This is David Martinez. Lost his sister, Maria. She worked on the 97th floor, called her family from the burning building. They heard her die. This is James Morrison. Lost both parents. They were on Flight 175. He was 12 years old, orphaned in one morning. The families were shown on screen. Real people, real pain. 23 years later, and it was still raw. Johnson turned back to Omar. These families are here because you minimized their loss. You reduced the worst terrorist attack in American history to, some people did something. Why? Omar tried to respond. Mr. Speaker, that statement was taken out of context. Context? Johnson's voice rose for the first time. What context makes that acceptable? What context justifies calling mass murder something? He pulled up the full video. Let us look at the context. You were not mourning the dead. You were not honoring the victims. You were complaining about civil liberties. You made 9/11 about victimhood. 3,000 Americans murdered by terrorists. And you think others are the victims? Let that sink in. 3,000 dead. And she is worried about feeling uncomfortable. Let me ask you directly, Congresswoman. Who attacked us on 9/11? Omar hesitated. She knew this was a rhetorical trap, but she had to answer. Terrorists. What kind of terrorists? Say it. Mr. Speaker, I don't think it is helpful. Islamic terrorists. Radical Islamic terrorists. 19 men who believed they were serving a law by murdering innocents. Say the words. She would not, could not, stood there silent. You cannot even name what happened because you sympathize with the ideology more than with the victims. Johnson pulled out more documents. Let us examine your voting record on terrorism. Every resolution condemning radical terrorism. You have voted present or no. Never. Yes. Every bill. Strengthening terrorism screening. No vote. Every measure supporting victims of terrorism. No vote. Designation of the Revolutionary Guard as terrorists. No vote. You will not condemn it. You will not name it. You minimize it. You make excuses for it. He looked at the 9/11 families in the gallery. Then, back to Omar. These families deserve an apology. Not your excuses, not your deflections. An apology. Can you look at them and say, I am sorry for minimizing the worst day of your lives? Omar's face showed conflict. Pride versus self-preservation. I regret. if my words caused pain. If your words caused pain? Look at them. Johnson pointed to the gallery. Do they look like you? Are not sure? Patricia Riley was crying. David Martinez had his head in his hands. James Morrison stared at Omar with barely contained rage. They lost everything. And you cannot even give them a real apology, because you do not believe you did anything wrong. Johnson took a breath, composed himself, and returned to that calm authority. Let me tell you why this matters. It is not just about your words. Words reveal what is in the heart, and your heart is not with the victims. You came here from Somalia, running from extremism, the same kind of ideology that attacked us on 9/11. You should hate what they did. You should stand with the victims. Instead, you excuse it. You minimize it. You cannot even name it. That tells me everything about your loyalty, about your values, about whether you deserve the honor of representing Americans in this chamber. He gestured to the seats around them. Hundreds of members have sat in this chamber since 9/11. Democrat and Republican, liberal and conservative, all different. But we all honored the victims. We all condemned the terrorists. We all said, never again except you. Omar stood there, effectively dismantled. No defense, no excuse, just her own words condemning her. But your contempt for America does not stop with 9/11, Johnson said. Let us discuss your ongoing attacks on this country, the country that saved your life. Mike Johnson opened another folder. This one was thick, pages and pages of statements. Congresswoman, you have been in Congress since 2019, 6 years. In that time, you have made numerous statements about America. Let me read some of them. He pulled out a speech. June 2019. You said America was founded on genocide and slavery. Direct quote. July 2019. You called America a nightmare for brown immigrants. September 2020. You compared American soldiers to terrorists. Said there is no difference between the U.S. military and the Taliban. January 2021. You said American systems need to be dismantled because they are inherently oppressive. He looked up. That is not constructive criticism. That is hostility. Pure hostility. Think about what she is saying. America is evil, founded on evil, run by evil, no different from the Taliban. Let us examine each statement. Founded on genocide and slavery. Yes, America had slavery, a terrible sin. But America also ended slavery. 600,000 Americans died in the Civil War to end it. We fought the bloodiest war in our history to free the slaves. We did not invent slavery. It existed in every civilization. Somalia had slavery. The entire world had slave trades. But we ended it here. We wrote equality into our Constitution. We have spent 160 years trying to live up to that promise. And you reduce all of that to founded on genocide and slavery. No context, no progress, no hope, just condemnation. Johnson pulled up voting records. Your votes match your words. Every bill to honor American veterans, you vote no or present. Every resolution celebrating American achievements, no. Every measure to teach American history positively, no. You hold this country in contempt. Your record proves it. Omar tried to interrupt. Mr. Speaker, that is not fair. Let us talk about fair. You called America a nightmare for immigrants. You are an immigrant. You came here as a refugee. So, let me ask, has America been a nightmare for you? He started listing facts. You arrived at age 12, running from war and famine in Somalia. America took you in, gave you safety, food, shelter, medical care. We put you in schools, free public education. You learned English? Got scholarships, went to college, graduated. You became a citizen, got to vote, ran for office, won, became a United States Congresswoman. You make $174,000 a year. You have health insurance, security, a staff, a pension. Does that sound like a nightmare? The hypocrisy was staggering. Living the American dream, yet calling it a nightmare. Let me tell you about a real nightmare. Somalia, the country you came from. Let me read some statistics. Johnson pulled out State Department reports. Somalia. Average life expectancy, 54 years. Infant mortality, 1 inch, 14 babies die. Maternal mortality, 1 inch, 20 women die in childbirth. 90% of women have undergone female genital mutilation. Forced marriages of children, no women's rights. No freedom of speech. No freedom of religion. Terrorists control large parts of the country. They murder anyone who opposes them. They stone women accused of adultery. They recruit child soldiers. That is a nightmare. America is the dream that saved you from that nightmare. He pointed at her. And you dare call America oppressive? You dare call it a nightmare? Think about the audacity. Saved from actual hell. Calls paradise a nightmare. You compared American soldiers to the Taliban. Let me explain what the Taliban does, Congresswoman, since you seem confused. The Taliban throws acid in girls' faces for going to school. They execute women for not covering fully. They hang people in public squares. They destroy ancient art and history. They harbor terrorists who attack America. American soldiers fight against that. They die protecting women and girls in conflict zones. They sacrifice everything to defend freedom. And you say there is no difference? Johnson pulled out photos. This is Army Sergeant First Class James Davis, killed in Afghanistan fighting the Taliban. Left behind a wife and 2 daughters. He died so girls could go to school. This is Marine Corporal Sarah Martinez, killed protecting civilians from a suicide bomber. Age 22, gave her life for strangers. They are heroes. The Taliban are monsters. If you cannot see the difference, you do not deserve to serve in this body. The chamber erupted in applause, members standing and clapping. Finally, someone had said it. Johnson waited for quiet. You said, American systems need to be dismantled. Which systems? Democracy? Free speech? Property rights? Due process? Those systems made you, protected you, elevated you, and you want to dismantle them. I have a different theory about why you attack America. Want to hear it? He didn't wait for an answer. You are not a reformer. You are not trying to improve America. You resent what we stand for. Freedom, equality, democracy, capitalism, individual rights. You want to remake America into something closer to what you left. Collectivist, authoritarian. You want to destroy American systems because you do not believe in American values, but you cannot say that. So you disguise it as progressive reform, as fighting oppression. But we see through it. Your words prove it. Your votes prove it. Your pattern of behavior proves it. And that raises a very serious question about your loyalty to this country and whether you should be here. Mike Johnson's voice got quieter, more serious. This was about accountability, actual, alleged infractions. Congresswoman, I want to address something that has been investigated but never fully resolved. Your marriages, your immigration status, your campaign finances. These are serious allegations involving fraud, perjury, campaign finance violations. So let me lay out the facts, and you can respond. He pulled out a timeline projected on screens for everyone to see. 2002. You entered the U.S. as a refugee, age 12. You are listed as part of the Omar family, though there are questions about whether that is your real name. 2009. You legally marry Ahmed Abdi Salan Hirsi, father of your children. You are together. That marriage ends. 2009. Same year. You marry Ahmed Noor, Said Elmi. Records show he may be your brother, or at least a close relative. Why would you marry your relative? Omar's face went red. Speaker. That is a conspiracy theory. Is it? Let us look at the evidence. Elmi was born in Somalia, needed to get into the U.S. One way is to marry an American citizen. You were a citizen. You married him. While married to Elmi, you continued living with Hirsi, had children with Hirsi, filed joint tax returns with Elmi even though you weren't living together. That is either bigamy or fraud, possibly both. Johnson pulled out more documents. Investigators found social media posts. Elmi calling your children nieces and nephews. DNA evidence suggests a close relationship. School records placing you and Elmi as siblings. If Elmi is your brother and you married him to get him citizenship, that is immigration fraud, a federal felony. Do you deny that Elmi is your relative? Omar stood firm. Those allegations have been investigated and found to have no merit. By whom? Your allies? The investigation stopped when you won Congress. Funny how that works. Johnson moved to the next issue. Let us discuss your campaign finances. You have paid your husband's consulting firm now, your husband's firm over $3 million, from campaign funds, $3 million. That is not normal. Most campaigns pay consultants a few $100,000 at most. You paid $3 million to your husband's firm. That is called converting campaign funds to personal use. It is illegal. He pulled out FEC complaints. The Federal Election Commission investigated, found violations, fined you, but no criminal charges. Why not? Because you are protected. Because there is a two-tier justice system. Think about that. Regular Americans go to jail for far less. She gets a fine. You also filed joint tax returns with Elmi while living with Hirsi. That is perjury. False statements to the IRS. Also a felony. But no charges, no prosecution. Just a fine and a stern letter. Johnson leaned forward. Do you know what would happen to a regular citizen who did this? Immediate prosecution. Prison time. The full weight of the Justice Department. But you get a pass. Why? Because you are politically useful? You check boxes? First Somali, first hijab. You give cover on certain issues, so they protect you. That is corruption. Not by you alone, by the entire system that shields you. Omar tried to respond. Mr. Speaker, these are baseless attacks. Baseless? We have records, documents, timelines, your own tax returns, your own FEC filings. How is that baseless? The question isn't whether you committed fraud. The evidence suggests you did. The question is why you have never been held accountable. He addressed the chamber. This is what drives Americans crazy. Different rules for different people. If you are connected, if you are useful, you can break laws and nothing happens. But if you are a regular American, if you are a conservative, the full weight of government comes down on you. That is not justice. That is corruption, and she benefits from it. Omar stood there. No good answers, because there weren't any. The evidence was damning. But fraud isn't even your worst betrayal, Johnson said. Let us talk about your loyalty to America versus Somalia, because the evidence suggests your heart is still in Mogadishu. Mike Johnson pulled out financial records, wire transfers, campaign disclosures. Congresswoman, you send money back to Somalia. A lot of money from your campaign funds, from your personal accounts. Why? Omar looked defensive. I have family there. It is normal to support. It is one thing to help family. It is another to use your position as a U.S. Congresswoman to funnel money and influence to a foreign government. He showed records on screen. You have directed campaign funds to organizations in Somalia. You have lobbied against sanctions on Somali officials. You have fought every measure that would hold Somalia accountable for terrorism or corruption. You represent Minnesota, not Mogadishu. Think about what that means. She is supposed to work for Americans, but she is working for Somalia. Let us look at your advocacy. Every bill helping Somalia get aid. You are the loudest voice. Every resolution criticizing Somalia. You oppose it. Every sanction on corrupt Somali officials. You fight it. You are using your position in Congress as Somalia's advocate. That is not your job. Johnson pulled up photos from her office. You have a Somali flag in your congressional office. Not an American flag in the foreground. A Somali flag. You wear Somali colors to official events. You speak at Somali cultural events more than American ones. Your social media is filled with Somali language and Somali pride. Where is the American pride? Where is the gratitude to the country that gave you everything? He addressed the chamber directly. Imagine if I had a foreign flag in my office and spent all my time advocating for that nation. People would question my loyalty, and they would be right to question it. But because she is from Somalia, we are supposed to ignore it? We are supposed to accept divided loyalty? Omar stood up. Mr. Speaker, I represent a large Somali population in Minnesota. You represent Americans in Minnesota. Some happen to be Somali, but they are Americans now, or they should be. Are you teaching them to be Americans, or to stay Somali? Because there is a difference. Immigrants who come here and become American, learn the language, adopt the values, wave the American flag, those people we celebrate. But immigrants who come here and refuse to assimilate, who keep their foreign loyalties, who use America for economic benefits, but maintain foreign allegiance. Those people we question. Which are you? That question hung in the air. Which was she? American or Somali? Let me read you something. The oath of office you took when you joined Congress. Johnson read from the Constitution. I do solemnly swear that I will support and defend the Constitution of the United States against all enemies, foreign and domestic. Did you mean those words? Or were you lying when you said them? He pulled out voting records. Every measure supporting Somalia. Yes. Vote. Every measure that would limit Somali immigration. No vote. Every bill requiring stronger vetting of refugees. No vote. You put Somalia's interests ahead of America's security, ahead of American safety, ahead of the oath you took. That is not representation. That is foreign agency. You are Somalia's advocate in Congress, not Minnesota's representative. Johnson's voice got emotional, personal. My ancestors came from England and Scotland generations ago. They came to America, and they became Americans. They fought in the Revolution, in the Civil War, in every war. They bled for this country. They didn't wave British flags, didn't send money back to London, didn't lobby for British interests. They became American. That is what immigration means. Not moving your body, moving your heart, your loyalty, your identity. Have you moved your heart to America? Or is it still in Somalia? Omar looked shaken, because everyone could see the answer. Her heart was divided at best. Maybe still in Somalia entirely. Let me ask you directly. If Somalia and America had a conflict, if you had to choose, which side would you be on? That question was devastating because she could not answer honestly without destroying herself. If Somalia harbored terrorists who attacked America, would you side with American security or Somali sovereignty? If America had to sanction Somalia for human rights abuses, would you support American values or Somali interests? If you had to choose between helping Americans or helping Somalians, which would you choose? She tried to dodge. Mr. Speaker, that is a hypothetical. It is not hypothetical. You face these choices in votes. And every time, you choose Somalia. Your record proves it. That is not hypothetical. That is reality. You have divided loyalty at best. At worst, your loyalty is entirely with Somalia, and you are just using America. Johnson looked at the gallery, at Americans watching. This is the question America faces with mass immigration. Not racism, not xenophobia, loyalty. Can someone from a radically different culture truly become American? Can they embrace our values? Or will they always be divided? The answer is, some can, many do. Immigrants who come here love America, embrace our values, they enrich us, they make us stronger. But immigrants who come here and maintain foreign loyalty, who use America economically but reject us culturally, who advocate for their home countries against American interests, they weaken us, they divide us. Congresswoman Omar is the poster child for the second type, and that is why we are here today. Because she is not just anti-American in rhetoric, she is pro-Somalia in action. And we need to decide if that is acceptable. Mike Johnson paused, gathered his thoughts. This was the heart of everything, the core message. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Not angry, sad, disappointed, like a father whose child had betrayed him. Congresswoman, let me tell you what America gave you. He stood up from the speaker's chair. Unusual, but he wanted to speak directly, human to human. 1,995. You are in a refugee camp in Kenya. Your family fled Somalia's civil war. You are 8 years old. You have known nothing but war, hunger, fear. America could have said no. We had no obligation to you. Somalia wasn't our problem. We didn't create your civil war. We didn't owe you anything. But we said yes, because that is who we are. We see suffering, and we respond. We open our doors. We welcome the stranger. His voice got emotional. The Bible teaches that. Leviticus 19:34. The foreigner residing among you must be treated as your native born. Love them as yourself, for you were foreigners in Egypt. America practices that. We take in refugees, millions over the decades, from every war zone, every disaster, every persecution. If you are fleeing oppression, America says, come. We will protect you. We brought you here. Your family gave you safety. No more war. No more hunger. Think about what that means. From a refugee camp to America. From nothing to everything. We gave you food, shelter, clean water, medicine, things you had never had consistently in Somalia. We gave you education, free public schools, teachers who cared, books, computers, English classes. You learned, you grew, you thrived. We gave you opportunity. You could be anything, do anything. No clan warfare, no tribal limits, just your talent and your work ethic. You became a citizen, took the oath, became American, gained every right, every protection, every opportunity. Johnson's voice cracked slightly. You could vote. Do you understand how precious that is? In Somalia, there is no real democracy, no free elections, no voice for regular people. But in America, you could vote, shape your government, have a say, and then you ran for office, and you won. A refugee from Somalia became a United States Congresswoman. Think about that miracle. In one generation, from refugee camp to Congress. That only happens in America. Nowhere else. No other country on earth would do that. He paused. Let that sink in. So America gave you safety, education, opportunity, citizenship, democracy, a congressional seat, everything. What did you give America in return? Long silence. Everyone waiting. Hatred. That is what you gave us. Hatred. You called our founding genocide and slavery. You called us a nightmare. You compared our soldiers to the Taliban. You said our systems must be dismantled. You attacked our ally Israel with anti-Semitic tropes. You minimized 9/11, the worst attack on American soil. You voted against American interests. You sent money back to Somalia. You maintained foreign loyalty. Everything America gave you, every opportunity, every blessing, every miracle you repaid with contempt. Johnson looked at Omar directly. His eyes showed pain, deep disappointment. Why? That is what I cannot understand. Why do you hate us? We saved you from war, from poverty, from oppression. We gave you everything you have, everything you are, and you hate us for it. That is not just ingratitude. That is betrayal, deep, personal betrayal of a sacred trust. He addressed the chamber. There are millions of refugees in America, from Vietnam, from Cuba, from Eastern Europe, from everywhere. And you know what most of them do? They love America. They wave American flags. They serve in our military. They start businesses. They raise American children. They are grateful because they remember where they came from. They remember what they escaped. They know how blessed they are to be here. But not you. You forgot. Or maybe you never learned. Maybe Somalia is still in your heart. Maybe you never wanted to be American. You just wanted to use America. Johnson's voice got stronger, building. Let me tell you about another refugee. Madeleine Albright, born in Czechoslovakia, fled the Nazis, came to America, became Secretary of State. She loved America, served with honor, never forgot what this country gave her. Or Andrew Grove, Intel founder, fled communist Hungary, built one of America's greatest companies, created thousands of jobs, gave millions to charity, grateful. Or thousands of refugees who served in our military, fought for America, died for America, because they loved the country that saved them. That is normal refugee behavior. Gratitude, love, service, loyalty. You are the opposite, the exception. The ungrateful refugee who attacks her rescuer. He looked at her with something like pity. What happened to you? How did you become so full of hostility? Was it always there, or did something corrupt you after you got here? Because the alternative is worse. The alternative is that you came here intending to harm us, that you are a fifth column, someone who infiltrated America to attack it from within. I do not want to believe that. I want to believe you just got confused, lost your way, forgot your blessings, bought into anti-American propaganda, but your pattern of behavior makes that hard to believe. Johnson returned to the speaker's chair, sat down, gathered himself. This is the question before us today. Can someone who hates America represent America? Can someone with divided loyalties serve in Congress? Can an ungrateful refugee be trusted with power? I believe the answer is no, and I believe it is time for consequences. Mike Johnson composed himself. This was the moment everything had been building toward. Time for judgment. Congresswoman Omar, I have laid out the evidence. Your own words, your own votes, your own pattern of behavior over 6 years in Congress. Anti-Semitism, hatred of Israel, minimization of 9/11, anti-American rhetoric, possible immigration fraud, divided loyalty to Somalia, betrayal of the trust America placed in you. You have had the opportunity to respond, to defend yourself, to explain, and you have offered nothing but deflections and excuses. He looked around the chamber. at the other members, at the gallery, at the cameras. So, now this body must decide. What do we do with a member who holds America in contempt, who attacks our allies, who maintains foreign loyalty, who shows no gratitude for the opportunity she has been given? Johnson pulled out a formal resolution. I have here a resolution to censure the gentlewoman from Minnesota, to formally condemn her conduct, to remove her from all committee assignments, to send a message that this body will not tolerate hatred of America from within its own ranks. Omar stood up. Mr. Speaker, this is nothing but Islamophobia. No. Johnson's voice was firm. We are not condemning you for being Muslim. We are condemning you for your actions, your statements, your votes, your pattern of behavior. There are other Muslims in Congress. They do not act like you. They do not attack Israel. They do not minimize 9/11. They do not maintain foreign loyalty, because being Muslim does not require hating America. But you have made your Muslim identity a shield. Every time someone criticizes you, you claim Islamophobia. Every time someone holds you accountable, you play the victim. That ends today. He read from the resolution. Whereas Representative Ilhan Omar has made numerous anti-Semitic statements. Whereas she minimized the September 11th terrorist attacks. Whereas she has demonstrated divided loyalty between America and Somalia. Whereas she has shown contempt for American values and institutions. Therefore, be it resolved that Representative Ilhan Omar is hereby censured by this House. Omar tried to speak. Mr. Speaker, the gentlewoman is not recognized. You had your chance. Now it is time for this body to speak. Johnson looked at her with that same sad disappointment. I wish it hadn't come to this. I truly do. When you first came to Congress, I wanted to believe you would be a success story, a refugee who became American, who served with honor, who proved that anyone can make it here. But you chose a different path. You chose division. You chose to attack the country that saved you. And now, you face the consequences. He raised the gavel. The question is on the resolution to censure Representative Ilhan Omar. Those in favor? Hands went up across the chamber. Republicans, many Democrats, even some close allies looked uncomfortable but didn't defend her. Those opposed? Fewer hands, her closest allies, the most radical members, but not enough. The resolution passes. Representative Omar is hereby censured. She will be removed from the Foreign Affairs Committee and all other committee assignments effective immediately. The gavel came down. Bang. Historic. A sitting member censured for anti-American conduct. Omar stood at her microphone, looking smaller, somehow diminished. The shield of victimhood had failed. The accusations of bias hadn't worked. The American people had spoken through their representatives. She was exposed, condemned, politically destroyed. Johnson's final words, "The House stands adjourned." But before he gave out, he looked at Omar one last time. Congresswoman, I am a Christian. I believe in redemption. I believe people can change. If you truly want to serve America, if you truly want to be part of this country, you need to examine your heart. Ask yourself, do you love America? Really love it? Or are you just using it? Because if you love it, you can still serve, change your ways, show gratitude, support American values, stand with our allies against our enemies. But if you cannot do that, if Somalia is still your true home, then maybe you should go back, because America deserves representatives who love her. Think about it. Bang. The gavel fell. Session ended. Mike Johnson left the chamber. He had done his duty, defended America, held power accountable, stood for truth. The censure vote was final, 234 to 183, bipartisan. Even some Democrats couldn't defend her anymore. The video went viral within hours. Not just the censure, the whole confrontation. Johnson's calm, measured condemnation. Omar's inability to defend herself. The 9/11 families crying, Holocaust survivors watching. Some people did something trended for days, used sarcastically, mockingly, a symbol of contempt. Conservative media played it non-stop. Speaker holds representative accountable for rhetoric, justice for 9/11 families, but even mainstream media couldn't ignore it. CNN, NBC, CBS, all covered it. Uncomfortable coverage, but they couldn't spin away the video, the evidence, her own words condemning her. Political consequences came swiftly. Within a week, Omar's primary challenger announced a moderate Democrat, actually from Minnesota, not focused on foreign interests. Time for a representative who loves America became the slogan. Fundraising dried up. Even progressives distanced themselves. Allies gave weak defenses or stayed silent. The coalition fractured. Pro-Israel groups poured resources into the primary challenge. Jewish voters in Minneapolis turned against her. The district that had elected her twice now questioned the choice. Most painfully for her, the Somali community split. Older Somalis who had come here grateful, who had built businesses and raised families, who loved America. They were embarrassed by her. She didn't represent them. The censure meant no committee assignments, no foreign affairs committee to push external interests, no platform to attack Israel, just a backbench member with no power and a destroyed reputation. But the real impact was bigger than one congresswoman. The confrontation sparked a national conversation about immigration, about assimilation, about loyalty, about gratitude. Americans asked, should we take in refugees who hold us in contempt? Should we give opportunities to people who will attack us? Where do we draw the line? It wasn't about bias to ask. It was about common sense. You welcome the stranger, yes. But the stranger must embrace the home that welcomes them. Omar had violated that sacred compact. She had taken everything and given nothing but contempt. And Americans across the political spectrum said, enough. Conservative politicians found their voice. Moderate Democrats found their spine. Even progressives had to admit she had gone too far. Mike Johnson became a hero not just to conservatives, but to anyone who loved America, who believed in gratitude, who thought representatives should actually represent America, not foreign powers. His speech was quoted everywhere, taught in schools, shown in citizenship classes. This is what America expects. This is what you owe the country that takes you in. Letters flooded his office from refugees and immigrants who had become American, who had succeeded here, who loved this country, thanking him for standing up. She doesn't represent us, they wrote. We are grateful. We love America. She is an embarrassment to every immigrant who came here with an open heart. The message spread. America welcomes immigrants, legal immigrants who come here to become American, who embrace our values, who love this country, but America will no longer tolerate those who come here to attack us, who maintain divided loyalty, who use our generosity against us. That was the line. And Omar had crossed it. 6 months later, she lost her primary badly 62-38. Her own district rejected her. Even Somalis in Minneapolis voted against her. She gave a bitter concession speech, blamed bias, blamed lobbying groups, blamed everyone but herself. Still ungrateful, still playing the victim even in defeat. Mike Johnson watched from Louisiana, prayed for her, still believed in redemption, hoped she would learn, find her way to genuine love of country, but mainly he was proud. He had done his duty, defended America, stood with victims of terror, held power accountable. The system worked. Truth prevailed. America remained strong, still welcoming immigrants, but now with clearer expectations and consequences for betrayal, as it should be. Speaker Mike Johnson stood for every American who believes in gratitude, who believes in loyalty, who believes that when you are given everything, you should give something back. Ilhan Omar represented the opposite, the ungrateful beneficiary, the person who takes and gives back nothing but contempt. For 6 years, she attacked America, minimized 9/11, attacked Israel, maintained loyalty to Somalia, and faced no consequences until Mike Johnson said enough. He used her own words against her. Her own votes, her own pattern of behavior, not speculation, not theories, facts, documented, provable facts. And he demanded accountability on the House floor, on the record, with America watching. She couldn't answer, couldn't defend herself, because there was no defense. The evidence was overwhelming. The censure was justice, not just for her victims, for every American who plays by the rules, for every immigrant who came here grateful, for every citizen who loves this country. This is what accountability looks like. This is what happens when good leaders stand firm. This is how we defend American values. If you believe gratitude is essential, share this story. If you think representatives should love America, share this everywhere. If you believe in accountability for those who minimize 9/11, share this now. If you believe immigrants should assimilate and embrace American values, not attack us from within, share this with everyone. It equals America first. It equals standing with allies against hate. It equals welcoming grateful immigrants. It equals justice for 9/11 families. Share this story. Tag people who need to see it. Show them what happens when America holds power accountable. Because Ilhan Omar isn't unique. There are others like her in Congress, in state legislatures, in city councils, people who resent America but use American platforms. We need to identify them, challenge them, defeat them. No more tolerance for ingratitude. No more excuses for divided loyalty. Mike Johnson showed us how, with evidence, with courage, with moral clarity. Stand for truth. Defend victims. Demand accountability. Her own words condemned her. Justice prevailed. But we cannot stop with one. Every representative should face the same scrutiny. Do they love America? Do they stand with our allies? Do they defend American values? If not, primary them, defeat them, replace them with patriots. This isn't about party. Democrats and Republicans both voted to censure Omar because some things transcend politics. Love of country, gratitude, basic human decency. The American people spoke through their representatives. We will not tolerate hatred of America from within our own government. We will not accept minimization of 9/11. We will not accept attacks on Israel and Jewish Americans. We will not accept divided loyalty. We will not accept ingratitude from those we have given everything. That is the message. That is the standard. That is America's expectation. Meet it or get out. Share this story now. Make it viral. Show America what accountability looks like. Tag 3 people who need to see this. Post it everywhere. Demand this same accountability from your representatives, because Mike Johnson proved it is possible. Truth wins. Evidence matters. Courage pays off. America won. And we are just getting started. No more patience for hostility. No more tolerance for ingratitude. No more excuses for betrayal. You come to America, you become American, you embrace our values, you show gratitude, or you face consequences. That is the new standard. Thanks to Mike Johnson. Share this story. Spread the truth. Demand accountability. America's future depends on it. God bless America. the country that welcomes refugees but demands gratitude in return.